Let's talk Carrie. For those of you who don't know, Carrie is a horror film that was released in 1976 that was adapted from a book of the same name written by Stephen King. The story follows this shy slash timid teenage girl that gets bullied by her schoolmates on a day to day basis, and she also lives with her abusive and controlling mother. Carrie also has these telekinetic powers that develops throughout the course of the movie. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the film starts off with a group of teenage girls playing volleyball, and during it, someone shouts, "Hit it to Carrie." Then the ball came flying towards her and she tried to hit it and missed. Then everyone in unison shout, "Carrie!" And then they start walking away in disappointment. Now, that's not all that bad. I'm sure we've all encountered someone who's not good at the sport they're playing, so I get the frustration. But what happens next is the locker room scene, and I don't like it. I really don't, because, no one should be subjected to this. But anyway, in the locker room, the girls are talking, goofing around, and getting dressed, whatever, and Carrie is showering. And while Carrie is showering, she realizes that she is bleeding. Then she proceeds to freak out and start going to the girls and asking for help, which any sane person would do, right? But instead of helping, comforting, giving explanation as to what's going on, the girls instead start pushing her away. Then she realizes that Carrie is experiencing something that happens to a woman when going through puberty and throws a tampon at her. And they all started taunting her and making fun of her. Then they start throwing stuff at her as she's backed into a corner, still freaking out, mind you. Then the coach steps in and stops them from bullying her and tries to comfort Carrie, which is where you'll see Carrie using her powers unknowingly and presumably for the first time to make a light bulb explode. Carrie does not know what is happening to her in that moment. No clue. Now we're in the principal's office. I don't remember the principal's name, so the principal. And I don't really remember the coach's name right now, so the coach. So the coach and the principal are talking about the situation, and right then and there, it's so clear that no one really cares about Carrie. Well, maybe the coach. She's cool, I guess. Anyway, the principal keeps calling Carrie Cassie, and he's trying to be sympathetic, but it's obvious he doesn't really care. And in this scene is the second time we see Carrie using her powers. Again, unknowingly, this time to make the ashtray on the desk flip off, and she storms out. So they ended up deciding on letting Carrie go home early, due to the locker room scene. So now she's walking home, and this little kid riding his bike saw her and tries to mess with her, and she uses her powers for the third time to make him fall off. And at this point, I think she's starting to notice her powers. So now we meet the mother, and the very thought of this woman scares me, but not in a boogeyman kind of way. It's just that this could be someone's actual mother in real life. And I don't think anyone should go through what Carrie went through. So Margaret White, Carrie's mother, she's very religious, strict, and abusive. Anyway, she gets home and gets a phone call from the school about Carrie. Now Carrie is already upstairs waiting. Then when she came down and when they met, Margaret just becomes violent out of nowhere. Like she was calm before, but after getting the phone call, she was still calm. Then Carrie came downstairs and she just hits her with some kind of book. Carrie is trying to talk to her and get an explanation as to why she never told her about her period, and Margaret is just not having it and is forcing her to repeat phrases from the book. And then she literally dragged her, kicking and screaming, into a closet and locked her inside. So now it's the next day, and the girls are in the gym, minus Carrie, and the coach is doing roll call, and she starts trying to reprimand the girls for their actions against Carrie. And I just love watching coach Miss Collins. Yes, that's her name, I think. Miss Collins. I love watching her be mean to the girls and then seeing their faces as they get detention. But it's not your average detention, it's gym detention. So while the girls are doing a series of exercises, Gary's in the library researching about her powers because now she's aware of them. So back to the girls. They're jogging on the spot, and Chris is being whiny and rebellious and confronts Miss Collins, being all sassy, and Miss Collins just slaps her across the face. And man, I'm here for it, because I don't think you understand how much I despise Chris, and watching her get put in her place is so satisfying. And when she calls Miss Collins the B word, and Miss Collins just drapes her up, and you can just tell that she's so pissed right now, and it's taking everything in her not to do more than just slap her. And Chris starts whining some more and storms off, and I'm just having the best time right now. Okay, I left some parts of the movie out because not that important. But Sue is one of the girls who bullies Carrie, and she's feeling guilty right now. So she asks her boyfriend, Tommy, to ask Carrie to the prom, and Carrie does what anyone would do: run the other way, because from her perspective, it could be another prank. But then Miss Collins found her sitting by herself, and I know she means well, but I know because it's your senior prom and it's a milestone of some sort, but I don't agree with her telling Carrie she should go with Tommy. Tommy is an idiot, and a persistent idiot, only doing this because his girlfriend asked him to, not because he wants to do something nice. Bro couldn't even care less about her. Anyway, he shows up at her house and asks Carrie to the prom again, and this time she says yes, but only because she needs to get rid of him before her mother sees him. Chris, her boyfriend, and two others kill a pig. Next scene. So Carrie and her mother are having dinner now, and Carrie brings up prom. This is one of my favorite scenes because Carrie stands up for herself and keeps trying to change her mother's mind, even though Margaret doesn't want her to go, and she even threatens to move. And Carrie uses her powers to close all the windows, and when she tells Margaret that she's going and that things are gonna change around here, I felt so proud of Carrie, like she was actually my child. Man, it almost moved me to tears. So now Margaret is yapping about how Carrie is being used by the devil, and how her dad was also used by the devil. But Carrie doesn't really care. She's just focused on going to prom. Meanwhile, Chris and her boyfriend are at the gym where the prom is being held, and they're pouring the pig's blood into a bucket on a beam or something. And for those who don't know, the prom scene is the best scene in the movie. And I know me describing it to you isn't doing it justice, so please just go watch it. Preferably after the video. So now, it's the night of the prom, and Carrie is currently getting ready, and Margaret is now trying to convince Carrie not to go. Then she suddenly starts pulling out her own hair or something for some reason, and still trying to stop Carrie from going. Then Tommy finally arrives, and Carrie leaves to meet him. And Margaret says, and I quote, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." And this is where she reaches rock bottom, now contemplating murder. Wow. And now, the prom scene. So Carrie finally reaches prom, and she's nervous, but she's having a good time so far. And she meets up with Miss Collins, who is doing her best to be inviting, and she's trying to bond with Carrie. And this is such a very cool and heartwarming thing to see. I just wish that Carrie got more of this instead of Margaret, honestly. Now, Carrie and Tommy move on to the dance floor and are now slow dancing to slow music. And Carrie is being all awkward and stuff, and Tommy proceeds to kiss her on the lips. And I mean, bro, you already have a girlfriend. But hey, maybe she also asked him to do this as well. So now she's questioning him why he asked her to prom, and he lies and lies, which is why I didn't want him taking her, because he's not genuine. So a while back in the movie, Chris had someone rig the whole voting for prom slash couple thing. Anyway, back to the prom scene. Chris and her boyfriend are now hiding under the stage, I think, to pull the rope. And when Tommy and Carrie won, the smile on Carrie's face is so priceless. I mean, you can just see how happy she is. And they went on stage and people start cheering and clapping and they took her picture, and Miss Collins is just so happy for Carrie. Oh, Sue. Sue is there. I forgot about Sue. Man, I forgot about Sue. Okay, so let me explain a little bit. So since Tommy went with Carrie to prom and Sue had no date, she's not allowed at prom. Anyway, she snuck in to see Carrie, and then she noticed the rope, and she followed the rope with her eyes and saw the bucket above Carrie and tried to do something about it, but is spotted by Miss Collins, and Miss Collins ushered her out. Then Chris pulls the rope and the pig blood falls on Carrie, and then they just left and everything just goes bad from there. I mean, the bucket falls on Tommy's head, knocking him out. Norma is just laughing like an idiot while everyone is just shocked. And Carrie was too stunned to speak. And I mean, she's losing it right now. And the only thing she's hearing is the phrase, "They're all gonna laugh at you," which is what her mother said a couple hours before. And now all she could hear and see is them laughing at her, which sent her into this blind rage. I mean, this was her final straw. And she closed all the doors, shattered all the lights above her, and stopped anyone who tried to leave. Then she used the water hose to start wetting people up. And I like that there's no music in the background, just screams, and everyone is running and just running around trying to get out, and it's just absolute chaos. People are dying left and right, and then a fire starts, and Carrie just walks out casually, shuts the door behind her, leaving them all to burn alive. And that was the prom scene, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, Carrie is now walking down the road in a trance-like state, covered in blood, and Chris is driving her boyfriend's car while he's in the passenger seat, and she tries to run over Carrie from behind, but Carrie uses her powers to make the car go around her, flip, and explode, killing both Chris and her boyfriend, of course, which Chris deserved. Did I mention how much I loathe Chris? I don't think I mentioned it before, or enough. Okay, so Carrie makes it home, and the house has lit candles everywhere, with Margaret nowhere in sight. And Carrie makes her way upstairs, and she starts looking at herself. Then she goes into the bathroom, fills the tub with water, takes off her clothes, and starts washing off the blood. After that, she gets dressed in her nightgown and finds her mother. They embraced each other, and out of nowhere, Margaret starts confessing about having adult fun with Carrie's father. Then they embraced again, and Margaret proceeds to stab Carrie in the back with a knife. So Carrie falls down the stairs, and Margaret is holding the knife, walking down after her, and Carrie is now trying to get away from her by crawling into the kitchen. Margaret has officially lost it at this point. I mean, she's smiling and moving like she's high on weed, and she backed Carrie into a corner, and Carrie, doesn't see a way out of this alive, and she uses her powers to send knives flying into her mother one by one until Margaret finally dies. And Carrie then gets up and hugs her mother, and I think she couldn't live with the fact that she killed a lot of those people and her mother, so she used her power to make the house collapse, and she dragged her mother into the closet, and she died. The end. Oh wait, Sue survived. Sue is the only one who survived. I keep forgetting about Sue. So that was Carrie. And I have to say, I really love this movie. I love the production. I love the dialogue. I love the writing. I love some of the angles, camera angles. And I especially love the acting, specifically from Carrie and Margaret. I mean, those two actresses did a phenomenal job with their roles. I mean, I don't see anybody playing them other than these actresses. And I would give this movie a 10 out of 10, but in this day and age, no movie can be perfect, even though I think this movie is pretty much perfect. Anyway, I highly recommend you watch it. The 1976 one, not the 2002 one, not the 2013 one, and most definitely not the sequel. Goodbye.